Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are all doing great today. It is a little bit cool out here for May today, but it's still pretty pleasant. But anyways, today I wanted to talk all about the beautiful bearded irises. These are really wonderful, beautiful plants and surprisingly easy for how beautiful they are. They are actually really quite hardy. So that's really wonderful, and they're so pretty, and they are coming into their full glorious bloom here around mid to late-ish May. So this is, I think, prime time to talk all about the irises and how you can be successful with them if you haven't tried them yet. So first off, I do actually want to mention though that bearded irises are by no means the only kinds of irises you can find. There's Siberian iris, there's yellow flag iris, which I believe is actually an invasive species where I am, and there's African iris, which I think is more like a tropical species. But these kinds of irises, the bearded irises, these are by far the ones that you will see most commonly in gardens. And they're actually called bearded irises because if you look closely here in their petals, sorry, I don't know if you can see that. You see they have that little bit of fuzz on them. So it's like kind of like a beard, hence their name, the bearded iris. It's just gonna be all about bearded iris care and some things to know about them. So first and foremost, what do they like? Well, they are definitely a plant that loves the sun. You want these guys in, I would say, at least 6 hours of sun a day. If you can give them more than that, they will be really happy. They might, however, like most plants can be a little bit adaptable, and irises are adaptable, and irises are no exception. I think they probably could take a little bit of shade, but I would say definitely not less than 4 hours. I really would go for that 6+ hours of sun if you can, in order for them to produce the best buds and blooms. So the next is soil. Now this is definitely important to get right. However, as far as fertility is concerned, if they don't seem to be that fussy. These plants are actually pretty rugged and hardy. For how beautiful they are anyway. They look like they'd be kind of like a diva plant. They are anything but. But anyways, they are not really super picky about soil. However, the one thing they do need, and I say this a lot in all of these videos, is drainage. These guys do not like wet feet, which means they do not want to be sitting in mucky soil that has where water pools for too long. They will not like that, and it can actually rot their rhizomes. Let's see if I can get a picture of one. They're kind of, see those? These are their rhizomes. You do not want those wet, or else they could rot and die. So you definitely do not want that. So make sure that their soil is very well draining. So that's soil. Watering is pretty standard. However, so they really like, I would say, a good watering maybe once a week. They're not really that fussy. These are pretty well established, and I actually don't water these at all. Generally because we typically get enough rain as it is. So I would say that if you live in a climate that gets a decent amount of rain, like rainfall pretty regularly, you probably don't have to worry about watering them. Unless, of course, they're brand new and they're just getting established. If you live in a drier climate, I would say give them like a good soaking maybe once every 1 to 2 weeks, and that should probably keep them happy. Now, fertilizer. This is something that I really do not think is necessary with irises. You will hear that they typically do like to be fed. However, I almost never feed these, and they do just fine for me. So if you want to feed them, like if they're not performing as well as they should, you can give them like a light dose of fertilizer, but truth be told, they, like I said, they're not picky. So I really would say if you don't feel like you have to and they're blooming beautifully, I would not bother. So like I said, they are really rugged plants. So yeah. So let's see, that is water, sun, soil, and fertilizer. One thing, however, I would say that is a little bit more, I guess, on the higher maintenance side of things with these plants is division. So every like 3 to 5 years or so, depending on how fast they're growing, these clumps can tend to be a little bit congested. So like I was showing you, like these clumps here, see, these are probably going to have to be divided here relatively soon because they get really, really congested over time. So as they grow and they grow more of those beautiful rhizomes to give you more flowers, eventually they can kind of crowd each other out and you kind of have to dig them up and split them. Now, if you're going to do that, the best time, at least where I live, I'm in zone 6B here in Ohio. So I would say, generally speaking, the best time to divide irises, I would say, is between late July and early September. So I would say really August is probably the best time. So like you dig them out, you have to dig them out, you cut the foliage off by about half, leave some, split up the rhizomes, and replant. Now I did actually want to mention one thing about that. You see these? There is no accident that these rhizomes are above the soil. When you do replant them, or you're just planting irises in general, make sure that the rhizome is sitting above the soil. Like it should be level with the soil surface. It's a little bit counterintuitive, but that's kind of how it is. Because like I said, they do not want to be wet. So you definitely do not bury them too deep. And also, and this is something that I found kind of interesting and kind of unique about these plants, is they actually do not like mulch for the very same reason. Because mulch retains moisture and it can hold on to too much water and they will not like that. So they actually don't like mulch and their rhizomes want to be above the soil. They like that sun and they like their rhizomes dry. So that is, I feel like I kind of reiterated that a few times, but it is important with these guys. But otherwise, they're really not that fussy. Now, one thing I would recommend is after they are done blooming, you can just take this whole stalk and just cut them right above the rhizome, but leave the leaves. Make sure that you leave the iris leaves in place for as long as you can. You can, at the end, like I would say, like I mentioned, like between July and September, if you're going to divide them, and even if you're not, you can just take like your pruners and just cut them kind of in half at like an angle, like a diamond shape is, I would say, is how you should cut them. Because when you cut them straight across, like water sometimes can sit in it and it can sometimes cause them to rot. So I would definitely kind of aim for cutting them at an angle so the water can kind of run off. So yeah. Now, the last thing I kind of wanted to talk about is winter care with them. So, like I said, these are very hardy. I think they are hardy from zones 3 through 9. So they are, at least this particular variety, I think this one is called Wabash, I think. I don't know how you pronounce it. I'll put the name up on the screen so you can correct my pronunciation if I got that wrong. But this particular variety, and I think many bearded irises, are hardy to at least a zone 4. These are a zone 3, so it's right around there. So again, super cold hardy, and like I said, they don't really want to be mulched. So honestly, just what I do is I just cut all of the leaves. These will look pretty crummy by the end of the season. So I just cut them at the ground and I really don't do anything else. One thing though I would like to mention about that actually is that sometimes at the end of the season, you'll see little tiny shoots coming up from the rhizomes. Don't cut those off, just cut off like this past season's leaves. The really long leaves, I would definitely suggest removing at the end of the season because, I mean, one, it makes them look nicer, but also they tend to get this insect called the iris borer. I can't really explain it too much because I don't think I've had too much of an issue, but what they do is during the summer, they will like burrow down into the leaf and into the rhizome, and they can kind of like eat it from the inside out, and which obviously will kill the plant, or it can kill the plant. So I would definitely, and by cutting off the leaves in the fall, you kind of help to eliminate or at least not perpetuate the cycle of borers. And also division helps kind of refresh them as well. If there's any damaged rhizomes, kind of helps to get those yucky rhizomes out. So I think that's kind of all I wanted to talk about with bearded irises. And they are just, like I said, they are so hardy and they are so beautiful. Sorry, I know I'm kind of in the shadow, sorry. And they actually have a nice fragrance to them too. I think a lot of irises are scented. And I would definitely recommend, if you have irises blooming, to enjoy them while you can, because the one downside to them, they do not bloom for very long. Unless you have multiple varieties. I do not. So I just kind of have to come out here and just enjoy them while I can. They really only last for me about 2 weeks or so. So it's kind of a bummer, but you know, I think there are very few plants that can match just the stately elegance of the iris. So that's kind of it. And if you guys have anything you'd like to add to this video, I would love to hear your comments and suggestions for any potential future videos you want me to talk about. And if you guys enjoyed this video, if you could please give me a like, comment, and subscribe, and I would really appreciate it. And I will see you guys in another video here very soon. Thanks for watching.